katoa, tēnā koutou katoa mō tō whakahaere ki tēnei whakarewatanga mō tēnei pokatino rahi, tino ronga nui, ko Vaughan Rapatahana tāku e noa, ka timata tēnei pō mi e Karakia. E tō mātou mātua, kua rui anei o pura hapai. Homa e katoa ke koni tēnei pō, he nako ho, ki e tupo aki ai. Kia ke teia ai nā hua, ake, amene. Ka huri ahau ki te reo ingarihi, mō na tangata ke koni kauri mohi o tākou reo tuatari. So I will speak English for those scholars who don't speak my first language. And I'll introduce a very young and vibrant publisher, Nicola Legat, from Massey University Press, without whom the book would not have been published. So I leave the floor to Nicola.
Kia ora koutou, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It's just lovely to have this big crowd. This is the second launch for this book. We launched last week in Auckland in a very small new Pacific Art Gallery in Simon Street where things were a bit crowded. So it's lovely to be in this beautiful space. And thank you so much to the Newtown Libraries team. We've done launches with you here before and they're always such lovely events and I know that this one will be too. We were really honoured when Vaughan and David and Mary approached Massey University Press about 18 months ago to talk about this book, and we just immediately wanted to publish it. It seemed a book that was really timely. It seemed a book that is rooted in some, I guess, big political issues, big geopolitical issues in Aotearoa and the Pacific, and of course it's rooted in a Pacific diaspora, which is not just an Auckland story, which I think people forget. It's a story of the whole of New Zealand, but particularly of Wellington. And so that's why we're so thrilled that our Wellington poets are going to read to us tonight. I wanted to thank Mary from Schrodinger's Books, who's here, and the books are for sale. Would love you to support the authors by buying a copy, and they'd be very happy to sign, and I'm sure all the poets that are here, please ask them to sign a copy as well. There'll be supper afterwards, so do stay and mix and mingle with us for that. So thank you again for coming. I'm now going to hand over to David, who's going to introduce the poets, and Mary and Vaughan will do the same as we go through the evening. So poets, thank you again for being here. We're so delighted to have worked with you on this book. We think it's become a bit of a classic and should be around for years to come. So thank you again.
Kia ora koutou, talofa lava, malo elele, nisa bola banaka, kia ora ana, aloha ahi noe e Māori. Welcome to this launch of Katūīvei, an anthology of Pasifika Poetry from Aotearoa New Zealand. It's been a long journey for us getting this book together. We started thinking about it back in the beginning of the pandemic, early in 2020, when New Zealand closed its borders. And we just gradually kept incrementally assembling it after Vaughan and Mary and myself kind of started communicating with one another via Zoom and via email and so forth. Eventually we came up with a long list of poets and a long list of poems, and then we got to the process of deciding what we were going to include. And so for the editors, we wanted poems which express something of the interconnectivity of the islands, Sea of Islands, as Epeli Hau'ofa described the Pacific, and the sort of the Pacific diaspora in Aotearoa, and we were inspired by, in 2012, following on from Wete Moana 1 and 2, edited by Albert Wenz and Rob Sullivan and Randa Whaitiri. And so our book kind of continues, I think, this in the same tradition as that. And it's about diversity and depth and identity of the Pacific realm. And I think of it as a Pacific literary festival between covers. It's really about the moment now. We want it to be contemporary. The emphasis is on poems which are happening now and authentic voices which are witnessing at the moment. And so it's been a real pleasure to actually discover more about Pasifika poetry. And we were pleasantly surprised by just how much poetry there is happening from Pasifika poets in New Zealand. So at this point, I will hand over to Vaughan or Mary, and if they wanted to say anything about the book or not. Just to give some comments. So these are very brief introductory remarks, just to give you some context to this anthology.
Ko tapu kōrero tino iti, nera. Just to add what David said, this is a very important book, because it's the first, it's sui generis, it's the first collection of living New Zealand Pasifika poets actually resident in New Zealand. It's never been done before. So it's very of today, very pertinent. And the second point that's very important about this book is it's so diverse. There's a huge range of themology, and a hugely divergent stylistic approach throughout as well, which makes it really quite marvellous. So you can delve into it for aeons and never come to the end of it. And I've said far too much because it was supposed to be a kōrero tino iti. Mary Taito!
It's so lovely to be here, Wellington. Thank you so much for such a warm welcoming. In Auckland, we were all sweating and standing outside because the room was so small. So thank you so much for your hospitality and your welcome. One of the advantages of speaking after these two fellas is you don't have to say much. But I just wanted to say, talk about very briefly my experiences of putting this anthology together. It has got to be the most gratifying and the most challenging literary project I have undertaken yet. We didn't agree on everything, but we agreed on one thing, that we wanted the book to be representative of many, many voices, diverse voices. We wanted it to be complex, etc., etc. We didn't want it to be a thin anthology, we wanted it to be a thick anthology. But one of the things that I was constantly thinking about during the selection for Katūīvei was, why an anthology? Why do an anthology? What is an anthology supposed to do? So Alistair Punga Somerville, who is my PhD supervisor based in the University of British Columbia, wrote an article titled Not Emailing Albert Wendt. And in this article, she said, in reference to Nuanua, Lali, and Whitu Moana, she said that anthologies do three things. Anthologies are a historical record of a body of work at any given time. An anthology is able to show connections between the writers of the work, and an anthology creates a community of practice. Katūīvei does all of the above and more. Katūīvei shows complexity of what we write about. And I'll tell you this story. In 2013, where I first met Rob Heck, I was at this poetry conference in Havelock North. And a woman sitting next to me said, "Where are you from?" You know, when you ask a Rotuman Islander that, here in New Zealand, you have to go Rotuma, Fiji, Pacific Islands, right? So she said to me, "Oh, you're from the Pacific Islands. You must write about Pacific identity a lot." I rolled my eyes. I've become an eye roller here in New Zealand. This book is not only about Pacific identity. There's a poem in here about the Incredible Hulk. Come on, right? So we wanted to show the broad range of thematic issues that Pacific poets write about in this country. The other thing that I'm so proud about this book is a handful of writers in this book. This would be either their first publication or their second. Katūīvei does this thing. Katūīvei is a first landing. Katūīvei is a soft landing for our future writers. So we wanted Katūīvei to be that, a matua, a mentorship kind of relationship with our writers. So all the first time publications in the book, the second time, we hope that this book sets you off on a wonderful career of creative writing, and we look forward to reading more of you, from you, in the future. I think I've said enough. I'm going to sit down now. These two are going to get very impatient with me. Thank you very much.
Okay, having talked about the book by way of an introduction to it, it's now time to hear from some of the poets who are included in the book. And we've got a list of poets here who live in the Wellington area. And so I'll just read out the order so that give the poets some idea, because they have no idea what order they're supposed to be reading in as yet. So we'll begin with Karlo Mila, and then Maringikura Mary Campbell, then Rob Hack, then Losalini Tuwere, Rhegan Tu'akoi, then Jem Wilder, Josua Tuwere, Kristoffer Lavasi'i, Mereana Latimer, Ruana Taito, and then Maringikura Taito and myself will finish. So we'll begin with Karlo Mila. I'll just introduce Karlo from this her write-up in the back of this book, and Karlo is a Pasifika writer and poet of Tongan ancestry, as well as Samoan and Pākehā descent. Her first collection, Dreamfish Floating, was published by Huia in 2005 and won the New Zealand Society of Authors Jesse Mackay Best First Book Award for Poetry at the 2006 New Zealand Post Book Awards. She has subsequently published 2 further collections, also with Huia, A Well-Written Body, which came out in 2008, and Goddess Muscle, which came out in 2020. So I'd like to now invite Karlo Mila to read from her poems in this book. Thank you.
Malolele and kanui timhiki a koutou talapalava. It's really lovely to be here. Thank you. And the poem that I'm going to read, I think one, given the long list of poets, is for Albert Wendt, which feels very, very appropriate because he is, you know, the godfather of Pacific literature. And I remember when my very first poem was published by him. And yeah, I wrote this for him at the launch of his book, Ancestry, and it references that book, and so much love to him. After reading Ancestry, page by page, I found myself dreaming, paddling feet in the lush green grass of Manoa, Hawaii, sand under surveillance at Long Bay, at the table of Balangi breakfasts in Samoa, circling an unfamiliar umu pit. But all roads lead to Ponsonby, where restored villas ascend, skylighted into Langi Tuwere, and the leaves still speak, the gentle green-tongued talk of tended gardens. You, Albert, character among your characters, appear, a dreaming woman at your side, flourishing, the soil of stories in your hands. You kneel together, planting the strangers of our sleeping lives. Past and present collide in one single kernel, unfolding beyond the boundaries of dream, taking their own shape, orbiting out into a garden of pūkeko, people, aloe vera, eels, light lettuce, mokopuna, named vine mats, fijoas, family gods, fungus, and freedom trees. We are all permanent guests of landscapes you have created, the nuances of red, blue, the caramel generation grow, practiced schizophrenics, surviving the small humiliations of raw peripheries. You've traversed it all, charting outsider territory with black star after black star before us. The relief of another way of mapping. Death will come, and still your garden will grow. Owls circling softly overhead. Once you have imagined it possible to ngafa back to Atua, the story can never be the same again.
Thanks so much, Karlo. The next reader is Maringikura Mary Campbell. I'll also read from her bio in this book. Just find it here somewhere. So we've got like 89 poets in this collection. That's quite a lot. Maringikura Mary Campbell lives in Pukekohe in the old family home with her whānau. She is the mother of 3 sons and 4 mokopuna. Identity loss, tupuna and Waiora are common themes in her writing. She is not a prolific writer, but rather writes when a poem is given or there is a fire in her belly. And please welcome Maringikura Mary Campbell.
Kia ora ana koutou katoto. Ko Maringikura taku ingoa. I've got a couple of poems here I'm going to read. First one is called Dreams, and this is for my now 18-year-old son. I wrote this when he was really young. Arita dreams of superheroes, tough guys fighting with swords and guns and stuff. And I dream of a waka climbing the ocean, of a whale rolling under, and I wonder, could I ride this fish? And this one's called Savaiki. Born of Te Ariki, descended from Aotearoa and Hakuotu, do not judge me because my skin burns in the sun. I know who I am and the direction I am travelling, towards Savaiki, towards the sun.
Thank you, Mary. Our next poet is Rob Hack. So I'll just find, again, the bio note. So this is very authentic. I mean, this is what we have in the book here. So, yeah. Authentic, I can't find it. But, Rob Hack was born in Invercargill and is of Cook Island and Kiwi heritage. He had an awesome childhood on Niue, and after several forays around Australia, now lives on the Kapiti coast. He runs 2 weekly creative writing classes at Te Aroa Parawai in Raumati Beach and hosts a monthly radio show on Te Pai called Not at the Table, Poetry and Stuff. He is researching and writing about the life and times of Papa Sir Tom Davis. Please welcome Rob Hack.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mary, Vaughan, Nicola. Beautiful publication. Kia ora ana, kalawhalahi atu, kia ora. I'll read one poem. It's a long poem, but not that long. This is actually has to transport yourself back in time. David said this is all contemporary. This is 1963. Some of you may remember. We just arrived from Niue. Cannons Creek, 4 square. It is tea time. The wind is cold and hard. I run, head down up Champion Street. 2 things to remember, 2 things to get. Small tin of peaches, half pint of cream, don't forget. Then the lights of the 4 square store. Inside, lolly bags hang in rows. In the cabinet, blackberries and raspberries. Licorice straps, gobstoppers, 2 for threepence. In my hand, hot with holding, a florin and a sixpence. If I get a quarter pint of cream, there'll be money left over. I fiddle with the money in my pocket, look up at the lolly bags. Then A man with a badge stands in front of me looking down. What are you hiding in here, mister? He jerks open my raincoat. A button flies off. I go backwards and forwards in his hands. He searches my pockets, pulls the coat this way and that. He huffs, walks away, rubs his hands together. Chilly out there, isn't it? To a lady coming in. Outside it is cold. I stand for a long time, tuck in the coat where the button's gone. I walk home. Mum is taking plates out of a cupboard. What took you so long? Where are the peaches? What's the matter? She bangs the plates down. I tell her and put the money on the bench. It sticks to my hand. She pulls out the tucked in part of the coat where the button goes, or was. Her eyes go big. She yanks the knife and fork drawer out. It crashes on the floor. Snatches up the rolling pin, marches to the front door, yells Dad's name twice. He runs after her. My brother's now beside me in the hall. Voices outside. We go upstairs to our bedroom, turn on the light, sit on the bunks. The front door closes. The knife and fork drawer is put back. Footsteps on the stairs. Dad comes into the room. It'll be all right. He rubs my head and gives us all a lifesaver. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Our next reader is Losalini Tuwere. Losalini Tuwere says, she's from Fiji, specifically from Moala, Lao, with maternal links to Ngā Tewa and she says she's married with 2 children, living away from Fiji for most of her adult life, has limited her use of the Fijian language. Writing in Fijian is my way of capturing my oral language and passing it on, she says. So please welcome Losalini Tuwere.
My poem is a Fijian acrostic of the word tanoa, a very central part of our protocols, our ceremony, and our get-together as families. That's the big, huge cover bowl in the center of our gatherings. And my husband will say the English translation. Ta loda mai.
Tea. Serve a cover drink.
Au karamadandina.
To quench my thirst.
Na waini vanua au mdiva.
Now with the drink of the land I yearn for.
Australia mai. Meu munumanda.
Oh, give me that I may drink.
Mother. Kay dombosara.
Drink with fulfillment to the very last drop.
And also Josua. The final reader I'm going to introduce in this bracket is Rhegan Tu'akoi, and again from the bio in the book. Rhegan is a Tongan and Pakeha writer and poet. The family hails from South Canterbury and the village of Holonga, Tongatapu. The poetry has been published in the Pantograph Punch, Sweet Mammalian, Mayhem Journal, and Poetry New Zealand Yearbook. She lives in Te Whanganui Atara, Wellington. Please welcome Rhegan Tu'akoi.
Malolele everyone, my name is Rhegan and I have one poem tonight. Emails from Air New Zealand are the bane of my existence. Care to reduce your carbon footprint? All my unread emails are from Air New Zealand, clogging my inbox the way their fuel chokes our rivers. Read on to find out how we're stabilising emissions for environmental benefits. Forests of sustainability reports are printed and promise to reach targets that Air New Zealand could have reached yesterday. The koru features on all these documents as though it's a partnership with kaitiaki, but like the treaty, they want Māori signatures and symbols, not input. Our coffee cups are made from plants, not plastic. Once I leafed through the In-Flight magazine. It chronicled their annual green morning, a swanky breakfast on the windy waterfront. They awarded themselves a trophy for sustainability. Heads nodded, hands clapped, but they still flew planes to every port. Only $3.99 to offset your upcoming flight. $1 billion company asking me, a student who cuts mould off bread. Their footprint's bigger than Bigfoot's, but a clean green future is my choice, so each time I fly, I need to tithe. We care about protecting the land. Surely Air New Zealand should be paying to offset colonisation.
And in this round, we start with Jem Wilder. Jem is of Fijian, Samoan, Irish and Scottish descent and is a Wellington-based writer. Their work has been published in a variety of places, including The Spin-Off, The Sapling, Sport, Is It Bedtime Yet, and Out Here, and at Enjoy Gallery, The Dowse, Wellington Museum, and Legat. Everyone, Jem.
I just want to say thank you to the editors for selecting me to be a part of this. It's a real honour. This one's called Unfurled. Hilsey found a kuri skin, tightly rolled and brittle, in the basement of a Wanganui museum, back before the H was returned. He built it an acid-free kennel, put in a saucer of distilled water that he kept topped up as if the dog could lap at it, and waited, as patient as the kuri itself, standing on the prow of a waka on that long journey, a living figurehead, anticipating landfall when it would finally have enough space to unfurl. Thank you.
Josua Tuwere. Where are you, Josua? Josua Tuwere has been writing poetry since attending high school at Suva Grammar in the 1980s, a period of great change in Fiji. I was there too. His creative journey flourished at the University of the South Pacific in the 1990s. I was there too. Part of the New Wave Writers Collective. He lives in Te Whanganui, Atara, Wellington. And I'd just like to add here that part of the collective included people like Teresia Taiwa, Robert Nicole, and other literary superstars like Mohit Prasad. Everyone, Josua.
I remember you too, right? All right. I think Teresia Taiwa needs no introduction to Wellingtonians. She's very much part and parcel of the creative spirit in this city. And to many of us who were at the University of the South Pacific in the 1990s, she was very much a muse, a mentor, and a friend. So this poem is dedicated to her. Every poem is a memory. Every rhyme has a face. Every line has a story. Every word has a place. Every whisper has an echo. Every breath, every sinew, every nerve, every ounce explodes on the page. Every writer has a muse. Every pen has a fuse. Every moment has a record. Every page has a turn. Every dance has a journey. Every step has a plan. Every clock has a pace. Every timer has a race. Every ship has a sail. Every sailor has a fear. Every wave has a reason. Every wind has a season. Every word has a sword. Every edge has a spill. Every peak has a champion. Every down has an up. Every fear has an antidote. Every heart has a beat. And us, gang, as we so beat, let us explode so that every poem has a sword and every word has a place and every memory has a sea that we can still sail on. Thank you.
Kristoffer Lavasi'i. Kristoffer Lavasi'i is a Samoan New Zealander from the villages of Wainganga, Saliaula, and Musumusu, with connections to Switzerland, Ireland, and Scotland, and was born and raised in Ngaruahia. This is his first time being published. He was also a student of Catherine Chigley in the creative writing course, Creative Nonfiction. Inaka, Kristoffer.
Thank you for being here tonight. I would say I'm sorry for picking the longest poem, but I only got one in, so blame the editors. What remains to be seen. We wrote ourselves into the spaces they left. If there's a story defined by presence, stark marks and colonial ink, then ours is defined by absence. The great white vastness that stretches between period and capital letter. In the myths of New Zealand, they write of an agricultural centre bursting with life, watered by distilled heavens, each drop a perfect piece of infinite blue. They do not write of how their endless Eden was paid in sweat that still soaks the withered roots, and broken bodies that have become the boughs of a ngafa that never reaches high enough to climb over the fence, and beating hearts rent from loving islands' bodies to be transplanted into a cavernous ribbed cage, a defiled mother, an echo chamber with strange white blossoms that rain from the sky, that quench the hearth-fire hearts, crushing the dancing flames of sun-strained island joy into pale submission, the land of the great white crowd. Their faulty understandings of Te Moana Nui Akiwa saw them craft walls that broke oceanic highways, draw arbitrary axes that, before their arrival, had never existed. They ripped out the truth of places, exchanging them for prophecies comprised of child scroll scratches scored into a map, a history book, a piece of legislation, a palimpsest of pain, each report, court decision, health check, history report, overriding the humble pages of tapa cloth, dedicated to the memory of those who come after. They wrote off our memories as foolish murmurings. There's no way that people could deliberately traverse the Pacific. There's no way they could comprehend the complex rhythms of life. There is no way they could have sophisticated social structures. They told us to forget ourselves. And so we were made to abandon our reflections, finding solace in the shadow that forever trailed in our wake, that precious remnant of ancestral ink tattooing our hearts, indelible memories printed in steel ink. But some remained, steering deeper into that great inverted sky, a compilation of the currents that moved to the rhythm of ancient memory, catching the glossy shifts of the future in the ocean's eternal dance, adhering to the primordial wisdom spoken in the ocean's tongue. Change comes. We annotated their pages, we referenced their paragraphs and fact-checked their reports. We reviewed their numbers, we rewrote their cliches, their stereotypes, their tired old lines. We killed their darlings. We wrote ourselves into the spaces they left, the spaces between the letters and the silences that spoke of the unsaid. We are done writing their pathetic stories. Now we write our own.
Mereana Latimer, Atui Pakeha Ngati Apa Ngati Wairiki, was born and raised in Te Wanganui, Atara. Her writings appeared in Turbine, Kapohao, Sweet Mammalian, Takehe, and on stage with thanks to Prior's Theatre. Mereana Latimer.
Kia ora, kia koutou katoa I teia po mānia. It's really special to be here tonight, just down the road from my grandparents' old home in Maringkura. Although this is a very joyous occasion, I wrote this poem in lockdown, so it's a bit jaded. It's called Plastic, Pepe Plastic. Their teacher's Samoan, but they say he's vegetarian, came from the big city, wanted a lifestyle change. These kids got the internet to navigate the moana, a hand on the heart of their inua, a foot stuck in 2 front yards. There are Insta babes now with long black hair. They eat chop suey now, say, you gotta eat meat to be real. Your nana got married in the PI church, ran the trams until the family was a row of houses loving on moon-faced, Weet-Bix babies out in Cannons Creek. The island that birthed her is unreal, like a shithouse divorce that got covered up years ago, like an earring you lost and pretend you don't care about. All your IV lines are flavors and your visuals are Google Maps. Strangers pick you as Spanish, say, you must be from the Middle East, maybe South America, your English is really good. Welly boys show you their cultural. They ate pigeon in Vietnam, smoked some pot out of a hookah, really vibe with Buddhist energies, wipe you clean of colonial guilt. Your nana would say it's good, like strings of yellow plastic beads draped over polyester floral dresses from the warehouse. If you ever wore gold, she would yell, take that off, before someone rips it from you. Because you never know where the thieves are hiding, even in the hospital and at the rest home in Mapuia.
Speaker for this group, reader, is Ruana Taito, Samoan, a mother of 5 children and the wife of church minister Tomasi Taito of Livingston Evangelism Ministries, Ma'ola, Wellington. She has a background in social work and has worked with County's Manukau District Health Board and non-government organizations in Wellington, and its Diabetes Community Coordinator with Diabetes New Zealand in Portugal. Everyone, please welcome Ruana Taito.
Talofa lava. Thank you to our editors for allowing my poem to be in the book. And this poem is dedicated to my mother, late mother, who on this day gave birth to me. Our faleo. It looked like the other houses in the village. All the families had their small beginnings. There were boxes of clothes for all our big ainga. My grandparents lay on their stomachs reading their Bibles. There was the beautiful smell of other neighbours cooking fish and taro with coconut cream. My spot in the house was where my auntie and I shared our sheet, fighting over it as we pulled to win. I always thought of my mum living in New Zealand, how lucky she was to be sleeping on a bed. Now, as I dreamed, I'm living in Aotearoa, and I want to go back with my whole ainga to do the things we used to do together. But our small, humble whaleoko is no longer there. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa anō. So it's my mahi now to introduce my fellow co-editors. And that sort of goes back to the point that Mary made before, that this collection, Katūīvei, is representative of a vast swathe of differing talents from younger through to slightly older. So let's start off with one of the slightly younger ones, Mary Taito. I've known Mary now for almost a decade when I came back to live in Aotearoa semi-permanently. And I first met her up in Kirikiriroa in the refugee centre, not because we were refugees, but because it was the site of the Waikato Poets Association. And I've noticed that Mary's poetry has really blossomed over the last 10 years. And she's blossomed as a person. She's now studying for a PhD. What else can I say except Mary Taito, please come and read your wonderful poem.
We should start with the older one. These two are conspiring there in the corner, and just know it, this one. So I'm going to read The Quickest Way to Trap a Folk Tale. A research institution walks into a village. Scholarly clothes, sharp alien tools, fine spun birthmarks flow out of a magic twig. A wet metallic nose presses onto the thinnest white flat bread that folds into a boat. A research institution gets to work. It asks us to open our mouths. We open. It lifts our tongues and prods. We sit very still. It pinches our uvula with its forefinger and thumb. We do not gag. It pokes its head in and calls out to our nasal cavities, "Hello, is anyone up there? Hello?" We do not sneeze it out of our conscience. It holds our light into our eyes. We do not blink. A research institution collects its treasures. Mafi and Lou's marriage annulled in a gazebo of hardcovers. Raho's canoe chopped and chiseled to stand like an antique spine. Moa Tiktiki's congealed birth molded into an impractical jacket. Kirkirsasa's armpit tattoos transfused into an overbearing Gothic title. Tinrao's bird taxidermized into a pretentious preface. Puaknifo and Mostoto's fist bloodied in volume 9, footnote 8. Tiaftoto's oyster shell shucked in a gloating afterword. A research institution walks out of a village, boards its white flatbread boat, scholarly clothes, the sharpest alien tool, copyright.
David Eggleton and I known each other for nearly 60 years. We actually went to school together in Māngari, Old Eri College, and before that Papatoetoe Intermediate. And he reminded me the other day that we both took Form 3 Latin. I won't swear in front of you, but I'm buggered if I don't know why. We learned Latin. Since then I went overseas, including to the islands, to live and work. David remained and became one of New Zealand's leading preeminent poets. So he's been awarded, for example, the Prime Minister's Award for Literature and Poetry. He's been a Poet Laureate. And go back to a point that Carlos made about Albert Wendt, I would make the same point really now about David Eggleton. People will look back on him, as they do now, as a preeminent major influence on New Zealand writing and poetry. So I've great deal of pleasure in introducing David Eggleton for you to listen to tonight. Thank you.
Sure, well, thanks. Yes, we do go back a long way. The poem I'm going to read is from the book Katūīvei, which means sort of wayfinding and wayfinding your way through life in a way. It's a poem that I wrote after I took a trip to Fiji, back to Fiji to visit my relatives with my brother. The two of us went together in 2019, and this is one of the poems that resulted from that trip. It's called The Great Wave. There is no God but God. Go mongooses in the monsoon. The rains thrum on empty biscuit tin drums to rattle supermarket and flick your face. The jail's walls are ivory. A rainbow crooks an elbow. The old shoeshine boy begs for money for a cup of tea and two pieces of bread. Everybody wears jogging shoes and sneakers. The jingle jangle of the bangle seller is drowned by a radio that could walk 500 miles and then go walking on the moon to a baseline by Sting. A crimson hibiscus lei drapes the punch bowl at the bar where I renovate my inner temple and wait for the night to extend my winning streak as hotel staff slice tops off fresh pineapples to reach garlanded pinnacles of mirrors. A hinge bends to lift a drift log from the surf. Thus spake Zarathustra to the Fa'afafine, bruise me with purple shadows of evening, fallen over searched caves of eyes that lids close on. I listen to the ocean chant words from Rotuma. The Mariposa is a butterfly between islands, a heat wave fathoms green, whose light spreads its coconut oil or ghee or thick candle nut soot, twinkles like fireflies over plantation gloom, and heart's surge is the world's deep breath. I learn to love every move the great wave makes. It coils you into each silken twist of foam, blown far, all the way to salt-touched Tonga, with mango pits, wooden baler, shells awash. My uncle, swimming from New Zealand, wades out of the sea and wades on shore at Levuka, where my grandmother is staring out from her hillside grove of trees, waiting for him. Thank you.
I think this has been one of the most fantastic book launch nights ever. It's been so exciting, so electrifying, so moving. Ladies and gentlemen, would you first of all put your hands together and thank our wonderful poets tonight. Vaughan, David and Mary, it has been such a pleasure. You have been just on fire tonight. It's been so exciting to be in the room with you. Thank you all again. Please do stay for supper. It's on a table down there. Do buy a book if you'd like to. And thank you again so much for coming. It's really very lovely to have you all here.